Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday night. Hey, squad. What's up, guys? We
Hey,
have,
squad. Hey.
how many people are here?
1 million people.
A million people? There's a million
Million.
people here right now? How
We're
come I
breaking
can
the
never
internet.
see? I can never see. Anyway,
It's on the
there we
internet.
are.
Must be true.
59 people here right now. Welcome to the Vintage Rescue Squad for this Monday evening. I'm seeing a lot of our friends in the chat. I'm seeing Vinny and Bree and Tiger and Mike. And who else did I see? I saw Katie and Jean and Val. Hello, Karen. Becky is vintage. And Pamela and
It's
Annie.
like romper room.
It is. Everybody's here.
And I see Tiger and I see Daniel.
Do you see me? Do you see me looking at you guys? Do you all see me? Hey, Daniel. So tonight is going to be a fun night. We have I was opposite. We have my lovely co-host, Michael from the Cult of Vintage. He is right here next to me. And so, Michael, you want to go ahead and just do your little introduction, tell everybody who you are and where they can find you?
Sure. So I am Michael Todd, and I am the Cult of Vintage, as you see right down here on both Instagram and now, of course, if you didn't know, on YouTube. So thank you, everybody that's already subscribed. You guys, it's incredibly flattering and very humbling. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, his videos are great. We were just talking a little bit before we went live, and I told him that I'm looking at his comments a lot, and everyone's like, "Oh, Michael, you film so great when you're shopping. You're not jumping all over the place like some people." And I'm like, but it's true. It really is true. He is very careful and slow. He's not all over the place like some people are when they film. But yeah, his videos are wonderful. So make sure that you do go and subscribe to his channel and check him out. And then my fellow gal here underneath me, go ahead and tell everybody about you and your channel and where they can find you.
I'm Cindy from Mimi's Treasure Cottage, so you guys can pop over and check out my channel. Like everybody else, I do vintage. My sweet spot seems to be like from the middle 70s and earlier, so that's where I like to find all the goodies at. I do live sales Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and I've started doing a Tuesday morning. I've been calling it Mornings with Mimi, so another live time that you can catch me as well.
And it's just a live chat, right?
Yeah, it's a live chat. Last week I sold a few things, but it's mostly like a live chat. I'll haul some things, that sort of thing. Just, a way to connect with people that I don't really get to do during the live sales since they, are kind of moving quick.
They do. And I think that it's really important to be able to kind of slow down and really kind of be able to talk one-on-one with your viewers. And so I love Mondays so much because I do that as well on Mondays. And it's just, I think that that's very important. I think it's for our viewers. They look forward to it as well. And we just a little bit of time where we're not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to, it's just, hey, let's spend some time together, that kind of thing. So I think that's really nice. All right. And then diagonal.
This way.
I'm not going to be able to do this. There. No. Anyway, down there in the corner. He's down there in the corner. Patrick, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. And
yep, sure. I am Patrick, the Trusty Huckster. You can find me. I'm Trusty Huckster Mercantile. And YouTube, my channel is Trusty Huckster Mercantile. On Instagram, it's TH Mercantile. Keep thinking I probably should change that. I thought it would be too long if I did the whole thing, but Misty showed me the error of my ways, and you could just have a really long Instagram name, and everyone will find you. But on YouTube, I'm a part-time reseller, so I do show up on YouTube a couple times a week. I do my sales on Thursdays, and then on Sundays, I try and do something. So like last night, it was a live haul. Sometimes it's a deep dive where I'm interviewing other people. Sometimes it's a haul video. Sometimes it's a premiere video where I just do a shop with me. So just going to mix it up and just trying to pop in where I can and make my presence known.
Yeah, and his deep dives are very, very good. If you're, he does different topics. My favorite one that you did was Kelly Mostone's story when you did the little golden books. That is one that I do highly recommend that you go and check out. You can go back into the archives of the deep dives,
and that's what they're geared to do. I want to keep them as as a reference, and that is one of the most popular ones.
Yeah,
because I think people just go, wait, what did she say about the letters? Where's the letters going to be? And people will just go back and look at the video.
Yeah.
It's a great reference tool.
It absolutely
they're evergreens. Yeah.
And the idea of the deep dives itself was really a brilliant idea, I think, and it's a way that everyone can learn. I mean, you're learning, Patrick, from the people that you have on.
Yep.
And I know that he's asked me before I come on, and I'm like, I am like a master of none. I'm not. I mean, and Katie has talked to me about coming on doing her collection show, and I'm like, I don't know I can't focus on just one thing. There's just stuff everywhere around here. There's nothing there's no one particular thing.
And actually, out of a sheer coincidence, because I don't think it was planned this way, but my next deep dive is actually with.
Oh, it is.
It's with Cindy. Yeah, she's going to be doing Sunday, May 2nd is going to be a deep dive. It'll be on Longaberger baskets.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Something I know nothing about. I like baskets, nothing. I know.
They're made out of wicker, and there you go.
They are starting.
They're all $1, right?
They're starting to pick up in price, I have to say.
I was surprised.
Yep. They took a nosedive, and then I think is the factory completely closed now, Cindy?
Somebody bought them and they're making baskets, but a very limited line. And I know that from a viewer, actually. I have to give credit where credit's due. I knew they had closed, but I did not know that somebody had bought them. But they bought out the company, I went to the website, and it's very limited, the amount of baskets that they're making now. So most of them that you'll find are probably going to be the older ones.
Did anybody buy the big basket building? Because wasn't their office building in the shape of a gigantic long basket?
Amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
It's in Ohio, isn't it?
I haven't double checked that lately.
Dresden, Ohio, I think.
Dresden, Ohio, yeah. And it's got a big handle sticking off the top. I don't know who else would buy it.
I actually had to put to give all my stuff away tonight. They had to put netting on the handles because to discourage people with small planes from flying through the handles.
Oh gosh, could you imagine? It would be a neat place to go and see. Well, you know what? We're just going to have to wait for when Cindy is on Patrick's channel. We can find out more about the Dresden, Ohio building.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I know that there was a point in time where I could go to an auction and man, you could just pick up a basket for hardly any, for really next to nothing. And I've noticed that they are really starting to become more collectible again. So it could be because of the scarcity, I guess, because there for a while they were pretty mass produced and now they're not. So as with things becoming collectible, that's typically, how it happens. So.
And that's why I do the deep dives. Find somebody who kind of knows so that when you stumble across them, there's all kinds of great topics I'd love to do deep dives on, but they can get so esoteric that it's like, well, how can anyone use this information? It's really interesting, but you're not going to go into a Goodwill and find, some amazing, sculpture or something.
Right. So, well, you know what? You never know.
But Longaberger, I bet we'll be able to find.
Right. Well, yeah. Typically you can't. And now since yard sales are starting up again, then, that's another way that you can really find some things like that. Well, and so one thing that I thought that we could, and one thing I wanted to say to everybody that's watching, if you have a question, I welcome the questions. We love the questions. I very much, and I was telling everybody before we had started that I really like this to be a viewer driven show. So I like to get the topics that we're going to talk about from you. It's very interesting to us as, having YouTube channels and making content to kind of see what kind of things that you guys out there are wanting to see or are interested in, or, you know, maybe even talk about something that you would like to see in a deep dive, or, you know, specific things that you're looking for. So, or if you are a content creator, or if you're thinking about becoming one, you can ask those questions as well. And I will highlight them. I see Jean. Thank you, Jean. Jean says, what other trends are you finding today? Michael, what do you think?
Trends am I finding?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you would call it a trend. I would almost put it in today's video, but I was like, no, I don't want to be shady and I don't want to discourage anybody. But there are those lovely little geese or ducks, whatever they are, that wear those blue ribbons.
Oh,
I can't. I'm just like,
don't get me started about those geese.
I'm like, stop it. Everywhere I go now, I'm seeing these stupid ducks. I'm sorry. I'm seeing these lovely little white ducks that are wearing these cute little blue bows. And I'm just like, ooh, little ducks wearing blue bows. Go away.
I can tell you why you're seeing them everywhere. It's because they were made all the time. They're so mass produced. They have them in canisters, and they're everywhere because everybody had them, and everybody. Oh, gotta silence my phone. Misty, that's the second time today that I've done that. So that's why you're seeing them everywhere. I hope and pray. I'm sorry if you have those canisters in your kitchen right now. Please don't take any offense to what I'm saying. It's just not my taste.
She loves them, but me, not so much.
There's always going to be somebody that loves something, and so it's a matter of, you know, you come across somebody will say, oh, it doesn't have any value, but it's got a value to somebody. It may not be expensive, but it's still somebody wants to build their collection. If they got a blue kitchen, a blue bow goose.
It could remind them of their grandma, or could it remind them of their mother? And so it's a sentimental thing. I tell you one thing though is one thing that's kind of goose related that I see making a comeback, I'm okay with this, is the ceramic, not the ceramic, but the plaster.
The cement geese?
The cement.
The ones that you dress on your front porch?
Yes. Now that's a trend I can live with.
Oh, I'd rather fill my house with blue bow geese.
Oh, I had one. You can dress it up in like little seasonal things.
And you don't have a problem with that sentence? You can dress them up.
You can dress up little geese. They can have little raincoats.
I can only ever picture the little Morton raincoat girl. That's the way all the geese are dressed for the rain. Like, come on, people, they're geese. They don't need to be dressed for the rain. They like it.
My favorite little costume that I remember seeing for those geese, where they would have like a dress and they would sew like human hands. So like the front of them would have like human hands. It was bizarre, but I liked it. I liked it.
Those are hard to ship. So I
don't think I would ship them, but I'd like to have one again on my porch. I would.
Be careful what you ask for. You'll get one.
They don't fit in those flat rates, do they?
Oh, no.
Maybe in pieces, the way they belong. You know?
Oh, no. Well, Patrick, what do you think is going to be a trend that you're seeing a lot, or what you think could possibly be?
I do think a lot of it. I mean, it's kind of funny because, you know, three of us are really more traditional Midwest, you know, with Michael being a little bit more, you know, Mid-Atlantic. But I think in the Midwest, the farmhouse style is still really popular. And I still hear a lot of people saying, oh, no, that's dead. It's totally going away. And maybe in some markets it is, but, you know, still people want that whitewash. They want a uniform look that I don't particularly understand. But I think in general, the trend ends up being, again, depending on where you're at, people are still in their homes. They're in their homes a lot, you know, depending on how locked down places are, whatever. I look around. I'm going to probably post within the next week or two the 1 year anniversary of the Show Off Your Bunker challenge that George had done last year. I've spent a year now stuck in my house, and I've changed a lot of things, adding collections. People want stuff that make them feel good in their home. And if that be it's a chippy piece of furniture, that's great. But it's, I think it's that home decor stuff, and it's just a lot of that farmhouse is still really popular, at least around me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. Helen says we're ceramic blue bow geese snobs. Helen, I agree with that, Patrick. I really do. Well, and I think though, like you said, with all of us, well, and even with Michael living up in Pennsylvania, this is a very common thing. Are the primitives and that sort of thing? That's really kind of been. I think that you can pretty much go into any home, many homes in our areas and find a house that is still just head to toe in primitive. And I don't think that that's something, while it may not be everybody's taste, but I know, yeah.
Welcome to my 19th century decorated stoneware.
But I think that the farmhouse and the primitive are kind of married a little bit. They're kind of, they can kind of go together a little bit too, because
I feel like every decade
there's
been some semblance of the country or primitive look. And it morphs every decade into something else, whether it's cottage, French country, and then cottage, and then it goes through.
And then cottage, the grand millennial, like that was a term I actually just recently heard. I'm like, what? It's like grandma millennial. I'm like, okay. So to me, that's the shabby chic of 20 or 30 years ago. Now it just has a funky new name. So
yeah. What do you think, Cindy? What do you think is something that you see?
I say this on my channel all the time. I am so unobservant. I am so unobservant, and sometimes I don't even realize how unobservant I am until later. But it's funny, I do see things from what people actually buy in my sales. So I have gotten understanding of where people are at from that, So I do see like a lot of people still or are starting to really like the mushrooms and the owls and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know where that's going or coming from or whatever, but they do. So, that sort of thing. But I do notice, and I myself like aspects of that farmhouse country thing. Like I like the white furniture. I don't know that I like whitewashed furniture, but I like white furniture and the chippy and all that kind of stuff. I always have. But like you guys were saying before, it was called shabby chic before. And then at one point in time, I think it was, the French thing. But you
have to be careful about using the word shabby chic, because there is a company that is called Shabby Chic. And so then that gets into that whole Vero thing. If you're listing something on eBay and you're wanting to list it as like an adjective to put in your title, it'll get dinged, because there's a company that their company is Shabby Chic. And so, so that's a whole other thing.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. That's right.
And Katie threw up a note that she says she thinks industrial is coming back. I would echo that. I did have a booth in a local store, and it was slowly moving away from vintage. They all wanted that farmhouse, but the fake vintage, totally fine, whatever. But the one vintage booth that did really well was the industrial. So just selling like the big rusty keys and, the old copper fire extinguishers. Just, there's definitely a place for that look, that, the industrial, the loft, but I don't think those are the same customers that are necessarily doing the farmhouse, but there's a subset.
Yeah.
I was laughing. I saw a comment from, I think, was it Helen Booty? Minimalism not. It's me. I am not a minimalist.
Oh, me
neither. A maximalist.
I am definitely a maximalist.
Absolutely.
There isn't any. I mean, you pretty much can go and see something different on every shelf and on every surface. In fact, I went to an estate sale over the weekend, and here in my area, they call them yard sales. They're not estate sales in like the traditional sense. It's just like a yard sale. But I kind of chuckled a little bit. I got quite a bit, but I thought this is going to be my kids one day because it is like this lady had like a whole table full of like cats, and then a whole table full of dogs, and a whole table filled with birds. I mean, and it was just like, and the guy that was working, it was like, man, this lady had a house just full of stuff. And I thought,
that was a nice thing to say. I actually go to sales sometimes and I'll hear people comment and I think, oh my gosh, that's what they're going to be saying at mine. My
oh, I
kids will
know.
think, Mom, get rid of your stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I've already put the little notes in a couple of my better pieces saying, okay, don't send this one to Goodwill.
That's a good idea, actually.
Find a home for this. Get rid of everything else, but this will help pay for things. Don't get rid of it.
Yeah, Emma will be like tossing out all my little babies. Here, take these. They're free.
You get one and you get one.
Well, my mom actually, go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said free with purchase.
Oh, my mom actually collected, well, she didn't collect. She saved so many heirlooms from her mother and her grandmother and passed them down to my sister and I. So I have quite a number of vintage things that are heirloom pieces. And I've had to really kind of make certain that I mark those. Now, my mom marked most of them, which is wonderful, but I have to make sure that I keep the markings and everything with the items.
Right.
So that my kids don't mistake my, my hoard for the good stuff that, has sentimental meaning that should be, continued down the line. So, yeah, that's the only thing that would be, they pull out all these old pictures. I have hundreds of vintage pictures that have nothing to do with my family. And for them to pull it out and go, who is this person? So I label, you don't know these people.
Well, and that does get tricky because, when you're constantly buying stuff, but then you have some heirlooms, it does get kind of tricky to think, unless you have some kind of provenance, like it was that Uncle Fred's or did I get that at Goodwill? I don't remember. You know what I mean?
But in a weird way, I think in my case, that's why I'm actually started the mini hoarding. Creating new heirlooms, because as I was growing up, my mother, her parents' house blew up in a gas explosion. She had nothing. Like we don't even have any childhood pictures of my mother. They were all lost in the fire. So she had no heirlooms come down from her side of the family. My father had a weird relationship with his family, so there was no heirlooms that came down from his side of the family. So it's like I kind of go into adulthood and then have my own daughter. I'm like, what kind of legacy do you get when you move houses every few years? You don't have the attic with all these things stuck in there. So it's like almost trying to build a new legacy. Like, look, here's something that you know nothing about, but hey, look at this, you can have it.
Well, yeah, I love that.
I saw somebody comment that they knew somebody who put it in her will that her kids had to hire an estate sale company. They weren't allowed to just donate stuff or toss stuff, heaven forbid. I like that idea. Maybe I'll do that because I have no problem with that. I mean, obviously, that's what I like to do. I have no problem with because then I know that somebody else is going to enjoy it. Yeah. And I was the same way with my parents' estate that I just got done with. I felt like at least if we can put it in the hands of somebody who either is going to love it themselves or who's going to sell it on to somebody who's going to love it, rather than just trash it. We had checked with a few different people to do a final clean out at the end.
Yeah.
And the one guy he wanted over $2,000 to do the clean out. And I asked him what he was going to do with the stuff. And he said, oh, the dump is just down there. I go, what? Do you recycle anything? Well, I cut the cords off of the electrical things like the lamps and whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a real quick no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, the sad part is he's probably doing that. He probably does that all the time. And so you're thinking about all of these wonderful things that are going in the dump, which is very, very sad.
Yeah, that all of us here would be like.
Well, I've actually had someone call me and say that their family was in the process of putting things in the dumpster because they had sold the house and they had to clean it out. And she called me and she said, I figured you might want some of this stuff. And so I went over there and we were just pulling stuff out of the dumpster. I mean, it was just, and I mean, they needed to get out. I mean, they needed to get rid of it. So, it's,
sometimes
in fact, I have a piece of furniture right here that was pulled out of the dumpster that I brought home.
Sometimes that expediency for people that are going through that estate situation can be a real problem. I mean, because depending on their situation, they may have they may not even be able to hire an estate sale company because it'll take too long for them to get in and do everything. They got to have that cleaned out, in a week, 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was fortunate. I had as much time as we wanted to take. So yeah.
I have a friend who's runs an estate sale business, and what she's running against is, with the current situation, limitations of people being able to come in, people not feeling comfortable being able to come in. So where she used to be able to do these types of closeouts and run them for a couple of weeks, and at the end fill a bag for $20 or whatever, they don't have the luxury of doing a lot of that anymore because they just can't get the people to come in. So it's, that's got to start changing too. But you run into the risks or the situation. The kids that are responsible for closing out may not live locally. So they're just, they come in literally to, close out the estate. They grab the handful of things they want. Yeah. And then they just want to dump it. And that's where you start getting really depressed when you go to a thrift store, Goodwill or whatever. And all of a sudden you're finding all these baby pictures and, the family Bible. And, you can sit there and say, oh, that's horrible. But the family had a chance to keep it. They just chose not to.
Right.
Yeah. That's so true.
I get that a lot when we're selling things that have that are pictures, or I've gotten messages from people that have said, haven't you tried to find the people who if there's a name in it, and that's just the thing. I mean, they probably donated it. You don't really necessarily. Yes, sit and think about it. Yeah, that's so sad, but the family was probably the one that. They
didn't want it. They got rid of it.
Place.
When my mom was still alive, she and I went through some pictures, looking for some old pictures that I could use in my artwork. And she was handing me some different things. And she goes, oh, and I have absolutely no idea who this is. I think it was a friend of a friend. How your kids give pictures to friends, like senior pictures and whatever. That we've been given pictures forever. And so they would have pictures of, Uncle Louise's best friend's son or something. And, and who is this person? I don't know. So she's like, use this. Nobody knows who this is.
Well, when we were opening up when we had first opened up the brick and mortar that we just had like a box full of old pictures, and I labeled them like instant relatives and was selling them for $3 for $1 or whatever. And so we were looking through them one day, and he was like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. That's me. And I handed him the box and I said, you sit down and you go through all these pictures and you pull out everyone that you know who they are, because I'm not selling those. And he did, but he didn't care. He was like, I don't care, but I did, So sometimes it's those situations too, where they don't mean anything to him and he didn't really care to keep them, but someone wanted them. And anyway, all right, we're way behind, but Book Me Wit says, do you collect other things that don't fit into your YouTube collector seller niche? Cindy, what about you? Do you?
You were going to go to me first. I'm sitting here in my mind going through my house and trying to think, what do I have lots of that doesn't really, I can't think of anything right now. So come back to me.
Okay.
I'll do a mental inventory here.
Michael did like a collection tour. So he, we really learned a lot.
You did. But, that's a good question. What you saw, yes, is reflective of the cult of vintage. Is it entirely reflective? I'm losing my voice. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is it entirely reflective of, me as a person? No. Are there other things? I'm really losing.
He's losing it, y'all. He's losing it.
Well, I love Smurfs. I almost had my Smurf hoodie on tonight, but it was a little warm. So I have a full-on village of Smurfs. Masters of the Universe, He-Man. I have a huge He-Man. Oh yeah. I do. Yeah. So I love 80s, but that's part of the story of the cult of vintage is that I very much focused on, especially on Instagram, my other account, it was focused on vintage toys. And again, I just kind of lost. I didn't get rid of everything, but I kept the things that meant the most to me or were most sentimental or nostalgic to me. So, but again, it just it didn't really fit with the niche or the idea of what I want the Cult of Vintage to be going forward. So
that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Well, I was trying to think, luckily going last, I had some time to think about it. But one of the things is probably a little ironic because for people that know some of the backstory of my channel, I've only been reselling for about 1.5 years. And it started from my theater background. I was doing props and set dressing for community theater. And I was kind of building up this collection of just these things I was using for shows that I didn't have places to store. So that's what I started reselling. But I actually do, so that it's kind of tied to my channel, but what I do collect that's really not any more part of the channel is my own personal theater stuff. So like the shows that I've been in, I've got all the playbills, shows that I've seen in New York, I've got those playbills, I've got, lobby cards from, a couple of my favorite shows that, that's not necessarily outside of the aesthetic of Trusty Huckster Mercantile, but it's maybe a little bit more personal, and it's not something that I come across because I wouldn't go someplace to buy it. It's really more that it kind of becomes part of my collection because it became part of my life. Like it was a prop that I held in a show, or it was my favorite show to design. And then the only other thing that probably sticks separate is one of my bigger collections is a contemporary art glass collection, and Trusty Huckster Mercantile, I do exclusively vintage. And so that stuff, it's probably getting close to being like the Etsy definition of vintage, but it's probably mostly from the 2000s when I had some money to actually buy the art glass. And so I've got some really, some of my favorite pieces that doesn't really fit in, but it's on display with everything else. So if I like it, that's what Trusty Huckster Mercantile is. If I like it, I'll sell it or I'll keep it.
Well, and my answer to that is, I don't have one really. I'm all over the place, honestly. I like to sell a lot of true vintage. And in my live sales, it's, there might be a few things here and there. If, you go to an auction and you get a whole box lot of something, and then there's a few modern things in there and you're like, well, I got people that like cats, and this is a cat, so you might occasionally throw in something that isn't necessarily vintage. And vintage is what people consider vintage can be argued. Everybody can argue what they consider to be vintage. But then I also will sell things that are brand new, and I usually list them on eBay, things that are brand new in the packaging. I like to buy puzzles and games and things like that. They're very easy to ship. They're very easy to list. So that, I really I don't necessarily put myself into one particular box, I guess.
I'm like that. I was thinking, of course, while you guys were all going, and as far as collections go, I think I was doing that mental inventory of my house. I have a collection of primitive Raggedy Ann and Andy's. I don't collect the original ones. I don't collect what most people think are Raggedy Ann and Andy's, that you see normally. I collect basically the things that people hand make and that look more primitive looking. So I collect a whole bunch of those. But those are more modern. I buy them craft shows and art shows and whatever. So that's, see, I don't think of that as being completely off brand though, because they kind of have a shabby.
They do. Well, and you're an artist, so you appreciate the craftsmanship of the ones that were handmade. There is something very special about an object that someone has created, and they didn't necessarily use a pattern. They just kind of created it, and their child played with it, and and to think about why they created it. Maybe they didn't have the money to go and buy something, and so they made something to give. And there's something special about that too. I like that, Cindy. I like that you collect those. Those are, of course, they're dolls, and I like these.
Yeah, you and I, Misty, are a lot alike. When you go shopping, I'm like, oh, and I know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I know. I was
gonna get that because I like it.
Yeah, I was talking to someone earlier, and I said, Cindy and I, if we would go, we would grab the same thing on the shelf.
We'd have to go in different directions.
Yeah.
don't know. You shop well with
listen,
Jeffrey, and I think you and Jeffrey like the same stuff.
But I will push Jeffrey over. I won't push you over. I will throw him on the floor and walk on him. No, I just. But I'll be nice when I shop. And honestly, Jeffrey and when we shop together, it is very much, and you guys know this, when you go shopping with another reseller, there is an etiquette to it. And it's like, if you see it, it's yours. I mean, that's just a given thing. There isn't there's not a competitive thing. Right. Of course, we all want to find something really cool first. We always been like, I want to find that on the, but we had gone, and that video will go out in a couple days, but of Jeffrey and I, where we found a whole booth full of Tanala. And, it was just like, you're just grabbing stuff. It was like Tanala that was $6 a piece. You're just kind of, grabbing for it. And, you get excited for your friend when they're finding some cool things. I mean, you wish you would have found it first, but.
But sometimes that is the fun, is finding something for your friend. Because if you know somebody really well, like maybe, you both would collect Tanala. But so maybe that's a bad example, but you maybe you would both be interested in something, but that they love it, or they sell it more often, or they're known for it. Well, then it's kind of like, well, here, this belongs to you. I remember, shopping with you and Jeffrey with George. I think George is here now at his.
Jeffrey's here too, because he said, "I heard."
Oh, hey, Jeffrey. George's estate sale last year. I was the one going through trying to build my fledgling travel menu collection. But then there was Jeffrey and Aaron. Aaron had the whole interest in trains. There was a really cool train menu, and that went to Jeffrey, so that he'd be able to have it, because he would give it to me as finding the best home for something. And so if whoever can resell it or pass it on to somebody, and it just makes you feel good, making somebody else feel good.
Yeah, it does. It does. And there have been times when Jeffrey and I have been shopping together, and he knows I'm looking for planters, and he has a lot of planters. So you're like, you can help each other. When you I can say, Jeffrey, I'm looking for this, and this, and he can say, well, I'm looking for this, and this. So you can kind of, you can help each other out a little bit too. Let's see. Cindy says, "Oh, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, do you want to have this discussion?"
Oh God.
About the Occupy Japan. I don't know if Jeffrey had a live sale one night, and that was a discussion.
20 minutes deep.
If you talk about a deep dive, that was a deep dive into the Occupy Japan. So why Occupy Japan items are more sought after than things that are just made in Japan? Well, and that's because things that were occupied Japan, it was made when Japan was occupied, which was it 1945 to 1951?
52.
Oh, this is where the debate is going to come in.
Well, we're not going to debate.
We don't need to debate it.
Yeah. The debate is this. There is a difference between when Japan was militarily occupied by the United States. There's a difference. It is a longer period of time. However, when you see an object that is stamped made in occupied Japan, it is a shorter period of time, because they didn't just start pumping stuff right out because they were completely destroyed. That's why, because it's a very narrow window. It dates the item, and it gives you a more specific, because if it says Japan, it could be a 25-year span of time. Occupied Japan, it's about a 10-year period of time, and that's it.
Yeah. And everything's debatable, but basically things that are occupied, there are people that specifically collect something because it has that made in occupied Japan, because of the whole, having to state your country, the country of origin and all that. So it's just like with collecting anything. Some people only want Tanala pottery that's painted by Ken Edwards. I think that's his name. Yep. I think it's Ken Edwards, so it's just, some people like just the bee sting Crocs, and so it's just a niche. It's a collecting niche, but that's why it was only made between those particular years.
What I'll throw in, because this was something that goes back probably 2 years ago. For people that knew my channel from the early days, I basically was building a shrine to Jeffrey, because everything everything I think he thinks I'm always making fun of him, but I totally wasn't, because everything I learned about my reselling came from watching Jeffrey's videos, and he talked about Occupy Japan back then. So I don't know if the sale, if that changed the conversation, but it was one of those cases that it's not necessarily all that much more valuable, but it's one of those cases, like in my case, I like to be able to research something and know when it came from. That's why I like European porcelain so much. They change the stamp every 5-10 years. So you can say this was made between 1922 and 1927. It's the same thing with Occupy Japan. If you see something that just says Japan, well, how do you know that it wasn't made 10 years ago by a company that just happens to be based in Japan versus made, like George has been talking and educating about the difference between when something says made in Japan versus just Japan. And then there's the Occupy Japan. It's like you just basically get to land on something saying, oh, Occupy Japan. I know this is a very specific era and I want, vintage. I want that, and that's also got a style. It's just, it's quantifiable. And that's where I'm still at. I've only been selling for less than 2 years. I get really nervous if I see a piece of porcelain, soft paste or hard paste, and I'm like, okay, it's not marked. I'm not 100% sure where this is from. I'm leery to pay up for it because I'm not sure I'm going to know what era it's from. So when it's marked very clearly, that it's kind of like an easier way to say yes.
Well, and that's the way, like, because y'all know I love my planters, and I just wish that they would mark are you a McCoy? Are you McCoy? Because it's like, okay, you could be McCoy. I think you possibly could, but it's not always, it isn't always marked. And so then you have to look through your books. And then sometimes talking about, and this is something else I wanted to bring up. Hello, Jocelyn, by the way. She said something that I wanted to bring up tonight too, but you tend to, when you are a content creator, you can get eaten alive in the comments sometimes if you mistakenly identify something wrong, because we should know everything and we don't. And I will be the first person to tell you that first of all, I don't remember anything. That's my first issue, but I like things and I don't necessarily know exactly what everything is. And, people can just eat you alive in comments and basically tell you that you're stupid. I have been told you are stupid.
I will state up front that I'm pretty. I have like
thank you
so
so
knowledge
much
of a lot of stuff. So it's very shallow.
Right.
Every once in a while, I know a little bit more about something, but I'm learning with everybody else. So.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I learn so much from viewers typing in comments, because I'm telling you what, there are people that know so much information and they don't have a YouTube channel, nor do they want one,
Right.
But they are a wealth of information. And so sometimes people will say, I was nervous to comment. And I'm like, please comment. If I'm explaining something and I got it wrong, now you can say it in a nice way. You don't have to say, Misty, you are stupid. Don't say it like that.
I can't believe you have a YouTube channel. How?
Yeah, you need to go to, back to school and learn. No, because that's how we learn the stuff, by selling it, by researching a little bit. I'm not George. Now, George can walk through them all and he can be like, oh yeah, this was made in blah, 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 blah. But George worked his butt off to learn all of that stuff. And, we haven't done that. George has earned those credentials to have. But yeah, talking about comments, when you do shop with someone, talking, Jocelyn said Dagny, passed her a piece of Murana that she wanted, and she got eaten alive in the comments for it. And she did, which was ridiculous. So people make assumptions. I guess my point is people are making assumptions and they'll type something that is not a very nice thing in the comments. And I don't know why people want to waste their time being so negative. You don't know everything about somebody just by watching, 15 minutes of a video in a day. You don't know what kind of friendship people have. And yes, Dagny works for Jocelyn, but that doesn't mean they're not friends. It's just ridiculous.
I think a lot of times, though, is that sometimes it's like you almost have to wonder, are these people actually even being negative in the fact that they're just careless with the things that they say, and they don't necessarily mean it to be rude or nasty, but they just lack tact. That they're not the best communicators. It doesn't mean, I'm not trying to excuse it by any means, trust me, but it's just kind of like, for the sake of the content creator, it's just kind of like, okay, like, how many friends do you have in real life? I see why. It's just like,
well,
I'm
sorry, but if someone calls me stupid, I'm not going to say, oh, they didn't mean it that way. Yeah, you did.
I'm laughing at all of that too, because I don't know if some of you guys know that I used to publish a magazine, and it was amazing to me what people would type in. Back then they were the bulletin boards and Facebook things and whatever, what they would type as opposed to what they would actually send to me directly, even though I read them both. Like if like my emails, I get an email from somebody that had just torn me a new one on the bulletin board, and the email was just as nice and kind because they realized they were talking directly to me. I think especially with
it wasn't anonymous anymore.
Yes, I think sometimes with bigger channels, people don't really get that they're having a personal discussion with the person who's putting out the content. They think of it as a business, and how many people have always, like you whine and complain I'm even guilty of that myself. I have to tamp that down to not, point out, because I grew up with a mom who was always like, she would always tell, well, this needs to be done. She wasn't that bad. I'm painting her as a bad picture, but people don't realize that here, when they're talking, they're actually talking to us. Like, nobody else is reading that. We don't have crew that answers the stuff that comes in the chats and the comments. It's us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, and I know that we are, everyone here, and I know that Jeffrey, I read every single comment. Jeffrey reads every single, Jocelyn you read every single comment, and you do. And it does. Sometimes you just have to laugh. And I do. I mean, sometimes, I'll like get a hold of Michael and be like, listen to this, and you do. It's good to have that person that you can kind of vent and just get it off of your chest. I recommend that you just do not reply to those people. You don't say anything, because sometimes you really just want to be like, well, but
you're never going to win that.
You're never going to. Yeah. So just delete it, block them if you need to.
But it can be hard to just walk away from it. I would just say,
but that's when you need that person that you can go to and be like, I'm going to get this out right now. And then that person will just kind of let you get it out,
But I echo with what Michael was saying. I think some cases, because there's been times where people that I've had regular conversations with, people that even though I haven't met them in person, I would consider them my friends, will then make a comment that I'm debilitated by for like 2 days. And I just have to go back and be like, okay, they couldn't have meant that in the way I read it. Like, so it's like, is there sarcasm in there? Yeah. Is there something that I'm missing that their sense of humor just, in some cases, it just doesn't translate over chat or over an email or, a comment. Now, like you said, if somebody just outright calls you stupid, like Jeffrey saying he was called a simple-minded swindler. I meant that in the nicest way, Jeffrey. I really it's one of those cases that you can't take it all to heart, but sometimes it's hard to shake it off. And so then I have to sit there and think like, okay, why is this bothering me so much? And maybe it's because there is some merit behind it. Like maybe there is, because this is something that I've had to shake a lot early on for whatever reason. But I was getting, people would put comments in the chat, or they would just do different things that I was called outright. I was called a know-it-all, that I was a know-it-all. And it bothered me to no end, because I'm like, I bust my butt to research the stuff that I'm showing. I'm going to make mistakes because I'm using the information I have available. Yeah. And so but I'll stand on the table naked and say, yeah, I screwed up. Like, thanks for, helping. To sit there and rub my nose in it is not, I don't know the merit behind that. Right. So sometimes you do have to walk away from it, but then it's like, okay, but I made a mistake. And that's the stuff that's sometimes harder to walk away from.
When I was publishing the magazine early on, it was just me. Well, actually, I did a craft kit by mail club first. And it's funny how many people thought they could tell me how to run my business. And it took a while to start gleaning the little pieces of things that I could use to make my business better from the stuff that they were giving me, and learn how to do that and not internalize all that other stuff. So for a lot of years, I mean, I had a lot of that experience. So it's easier for me, I think. But I did eventually hire somebody who handled all that kind of stuff for me. And while we didn't get nasty, letters or emails or whatever very often, she would tell me that she had three that she would do. It's kind of like you talking maybe to Michael, inventing or whatever, but she had 3 responses. She said she'd write the response right away because she was mad, and she'd write the response, and then she'd throw that one out, and then she'd write another one, and then she'd wind up throwing that one out. And she said, and then the third one was the one that Cindy would want me to write.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I always thought that was
That's the response.
Well, I think that it's important to get everything out that you want to get out, but you don't have to do it in a public forum. I mean, there are things, I think, at the end of the day, yes, we have YouTube channels, but we are also running a business, and you have to put your, my business is very, very important to me, and I don't want to tarnish that by,
getting down in the
some
mud.
foul mouthed thing to someone when I get really mad, I mean, someone's, said, and it left me a comment saying, Misty is an insult to all women that are good looking. And yeah. Oh yeah. And, what else? I mean, just some really stuff that just,
you can't take that any other way.
right. Listen, maybe they meant it a different way, but then I'm like, that doesn't even really make any sense what you said. But
I would have kind of been like, well, thanks. I
know.
appreciate that. I know, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I know that the comments, if you're wanting to start a YouTube channel, I know that a big fear is that you are putting yourself out there. And you do have to have, a thick skin. But at the end of the day, if you're putting out content and you are, bringing up your business and you're proud of it and you're doing it in a way that is beneficial to everybody, you should be proud of it. And if people have something bad to say, that's kind of a reflection onto them and not onto you. And so, yes, like Patrick said, yes, some of the things can like rattle around in your brain a little bit. And you're like, is there some merit to that? And I think that that's good, because then you can think about it. Okay, well, maybe, but also you can get in your head a little bit too much too. And I think that it's very important when you hit record that you are authentically you. You're not in your head. You're not like thinking that, okay, X, Y, and Z, and they said this, so I need to be this way. You have to be you. And the people that are going to watch you are going to know that, and they're going to appreciate that. So just be yourself.
Simple-minded.
Yeah, don't be simple-minded.
Simple-minded swindler.
Yeah, and don't be so judgy, people that are commenting. And you know what? If you comment something, at least on my channel, if you comment something that's not very nice, it's going to get deleted and you're going to get blocked. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So, there's no.
I like to keep a certain ambiance in my chats in my channel. So yeah, the same thing. I wouldn't tolerate that kind of thing, because it has a tendency to breed.
It does.
You get that negative, and then it just kind of sucks in more, and so just I get rid of the strife. And not that I've had a whole lot of it, but every once in a while somebody will just post a comment that's not at all constructive, just kind of, you're like,
yeah.
Bye.
Whatever. Daniel makes me think that I'm thankful for being a smaller channel. Listen, Daniel, and you never know what can happen. You can go from being a smaller channel to, to having a lot of subs overnight. It can happen. Trust me, it can happen. Daniel has a wonderful channel, by the way, and I do love him. But anyway, it doesn't matter if you are a bigger channel or a smaller channel. You're still going to get people that are not going to be nice because of
People.
X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? And Jocelyn does bring up a good point too. The most important thing is to block the haters and just move on. It's not worth responding. And that is, at the end of the day, it is the best thing to do. I mean, you have to think of it from a business standpoint too. If you were, like a Fortune 500 company and someone made you mad, you're not going to bust into the boardroom and just throw a temper tantrum. I mean,
well, no, they probably would. I mean,
they probably would. But being at the end of the day, just be nice and be kind.
And I think overwhelmingly, I am astonished at how many wonderful people are in the comments and in the chats and stuff. And that's part of the reason why I started doing the lives on Tuesdays, because I wanted to connect more with people. That's just my personality anyway. I just love people. I love all kinds of people, like everybody. There are very few people that I don't like, but I enjoy hanging out with the people and getting to know them. And I never imagined in a million years that my YouTube channel would develop into that, where I was getting to know people and making friendships on YouTube. I never imagined. I still have another channel that started a number of years before this one. And that just kind of never really happened over there. So I just assumed that, this one was it was a way for me to show my stuff, because I have an addiction. I have a problem. Admitting it is the first step.
She's admitted it. Okay.
I love to go out and buy the vintage stuff. I love to go to estate sales and flea. I mean, I love it. So now, actually, that's how I got into the reselling. Was a little bit last year because I had too much stuff. I had to get rid of it. And the joy for me is in the hunt, the finding the treasure, and I also enjoy getting the really good deal. So I like to barter. So all of those things combine, and so I realized that since the joy of it was in that part of it, that I could have it pass through. And I was totally fine with that, because I did all of those things. I touched it, I held it, I looked at it, it was pretty, and then I can pass it on. So it works for me.
Yeah. See,
that's the hard thing for me, though, that I'm discovering, because I am new to it, is it's like you find that thing and you're like, I can't believe I found this. How it's the thrill of actually finding that unique piece that is just like one in a million, and you're like, how can I let this go now? Like it was here for me to find. I there's just certain things I haven't been able to let go because I don't have that
problem. See, for me, it extends then after I find that unique piece or whatever caught my attention. My favorite part of doing all this is the research. So I love then figuring out, like, okay, well, is it actually unique, or are there just a million of them and I never saw them? And try and figure out. So then what I enjoy doing is I just have to be realistic on how much or how little space I have. Like, I can't keep everything. I don't want to just keep things in boxes. So unless I start a new collection, and I've started multiple new collections since I started reselling, I can enjoy the fact, I found this, I did all of this research. So now I can put it out there with the research and let everyone else know how great this was. And, when it was made, who made it, and all these special things. And then hopefully it's going to a good home that then they're going to enjoy it because I helped them get more information on it.
Yeah.
And, for me, that is, I do like the find, and I do like the, to be able to resell it, but I just love to be able to do the research,
Yeah. Yeah. That is the interesting part about it. And don't you wish you had like some sort of ability that you could just like touch something and then just get like a little brief what's the word I'm looking for?
Synopsis?
Yeah. Of the past that it had, like who owned it. I mean, you don't want to know the bad stuff, just the good things. Just the good things, because I'm sure some things probably don't have a lot of good things that came along with it, but you just want to know the good things. But wouldn't that be neat to have? Like, that would be if I could have a superpower, that would be it. Just be able to like just touch something and like get a glimpse of the life that it had.
I love when I find an item and taped to the bottom is, this is to so-and-so from so-and-so.
Oh,
and the date, sometimes they'll say what it was given for a birthday or for Christmas or whatever. That always, I enjoy that so much. And I enjoy all the writing in the books.
Yeah.
They teach us all the time not to write in our books, but the most precious books, to me anyway, from my family's estate were the ones that my great-grandparents had written in,
Yeah.
and my grandparents had written in,
Yeah.
because that was a part of their personality that I didn't know because I didn't know them. So yeah, I enjoy that, and I enjoy when I find things that strangers have doodled in, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
always really fun for me.
I love the ones with the notes, like when he's like either I got it from this, or
Yes.
I remember getting it was like a little leather cigarette case, and there was like this tiny little card that it just like it was purchased at this store at this time. It was given to this person for this occasion. Like all of this was written in there. And my biggest thing when I went to sell it was I didn't want that to get separated from the cigarette case. I'm like, to me, that was just as much value as the case itself. And I, actually interestingly, because you just popped her up, Katie is the one who bought that. And so I'm like, I'm so glad, because I knew that Katie would also honor that little tag and not try and say, oh no, it's just the case that I wanted. Yeah. Sometimes it's the story that helps make something really interesting.
Oh, I agree. I think that's why I like ephemera and books and stuff in general, because you do find those little handwritten notes, that are and I always say, and I know this would take some stuff to do, but like what we were talking about earlier, if there's something that you want like your family to hold on to, write a little note and stick it inside something or tape it to it. Because just think about, 50 years from now, somebody's going to have that and they're going to be like, you remember when some little old lady named Misty had this thing? She stuck this note in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing because
$2.
Mom, I think in her effort to keep us from ever parting with any of the airlines, she wrote in Sharpie marker on the bottom of all.
Oh no!
So in other words, this has no value except us. This is from
right.
on everything, even on pictures. She wrote on the front, like right on the front of the pictures. They were like, okay.
I said, did she work at Goodwill did she write, because Goodwill likes to write in Sharpie on everything. And I want to say though, too, about, I think I want to keep Katie's question up or I will lose it, but it was John and Petey had said, wisdom can be found in those notes in old books. An interesting thing though, too, if you're finding an old book, if you look through the book, like, look through all the pages, because sometimes notes and stuff can get stuck in those pages. People are like, well, money sometimes can be in those pages too. So if you find an old book, just kind of go through it, make sure there isn't a little note or something stuck in there. I have found a lot of notes in books, and that's just you kind of feel a little voyeuristic. You're opening up this note and you're reading some love letter from somebody.
Doing a quick little sidestep, it's still on the keeping things together, but Lavish Mango put a question to me that asked about the painting in the vase. So not everyone's going to know about this, but I had done a video about a month ago now. I found a framed watercolor of a porcelain vase with a floral arrangement in it, dated 1914.
Wow.
And it had the vase with it. And so I bought the two together. And what I put in the video and this goes back to what we were talking about before, like the hive mind, like I just put out in the video, the vase was damaged. There were several cracks in it, and it had like two wings that came off the top, and one of the wings is missing. So it's like, it really needs to be reconstructed. And I just put in there, hey, if anyone knows someplace, I'd like to find someplace to get this restored. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I'll do a video, of it being restored or whatever. And a bunch of people sent me information, and I answered to Lavish Mango's question. I found a place in Evanston, Illinois. I'm going to be going there later this month, and she's allowed me to videotape. So I'll do the original interaction, she kind of examines it, figures out what she can and can't do for a reasonable price, and then kind of maybe do a process and then kind of see what the final result ends up being. So right now they're still in my possession, but it was one of those cases, like it wasn't even my specific aesthetic or something that I really oh, I need this. It was more like I need to protect these from getting separated, because they'd ended up in a thrift store. They had separate prices on them. And at some point, someone was going to buy that painting without the vase, and they'd never be seen again. So thank you for asking, Lavish Mango. So I don't have new information yet, but I did make some progress. So hopefully,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that series when I do it.
Joanne Precious Lavender Button said that her mother hid $15,000 in cash in all of her 3,000 books. She hated the bank.
I saw that. I was like, wow. There's been a whole thing going on in the chat about finding money. And I actually found money recently. It wasn't a whole lot, but my gosh, it was really exciting. And
Hey,
my
that's
mom
one of the
loves money too hidden in things. Go ahead, Michael.
No, somebody breaks into your house. Do you know what they're not stealing? Books.
Books.
Think about that.
Yeah.
They're not stealing books.
No. Although, if we keep talking that we're hiding money in our books, they might.
Don't let this video go viral.
Right. Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. That might be an okay thing, right? So Katie has a question, and I think this is a good question, is what do you think will be the next big item at the live sale? Like, what do you, well, I don't know. I think that the viewers can maybe say what they think.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
So,
I want to hear what people are looking for. And if we can't see like some kind of like consistent answer or similarities, that would be really interesting.
What I would like, what would be great if it did become popular? Those little egg cooker things that everybody sees in Goodwill. You know what I'm talking about?
The egg coddlers?
Yeah, no, like the new ones. They're white and they've got the little orange thing around them. They're in every Goodwill. Every Goodwill. Coddlers, no. I mean, I don't think that, but I will buy them if that's the case. The egg coddlers.
Oh, the egg coddlers.
So yeah, I want to know what you guys. Oh, a Michael Todd assemblage. Well, there's going to be one for sale tomorrow, right?
There is, as a matter of fact.
During the three-way sale.
Yeah.
George Foreman grills. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love we use our George Foreman grill.
The original.
Every time I think of George Foreman grills, I think my husband and I will say it, don't burn your foot. That's an office. It's alluding to the office.
I don't remember that.
He had the George Foreman grill in bed. I don't know why. He burned his foot.
Oh my gosh.
Go figure. But anyway, that's why I always think about George Foreman grills.
Wasn't he the one that named all five of his kids?
Oh yeah, George, and my other son George. Let's see. I saw Carnival Glass. I've heard Carnival Glass a couple times. Tony said Carnival Glass.
Oof.
I mean, but I think legit Carnival Glass, like
I know, but that's what it's so hard. There's so much, and they produced it for so long, and so
yeah. But you know, if you have,
and,
but if you've got one, a legit one, and then I mean, you can so tell the difference.
Yep.
If you have them side by side, you know.
And it's the more recent ones that are still vintage, but it's the more recent ones that then people get burned out by.
They do.
Because that's what, we all grew up with in the 70s, or some of us grew up with in the 70s, that, that's not special. That was everywhere. It's like, yeah, because that's not the real Carnival Glass. When I started reselling and I started seeing what real Carnival Glass looked like, where it was one color on the front, then you flipped it over like, oh my God, it's blue. That I didn't even know that existed. And so now when you see it, I don't see it often, but when I do, I'm totally enamored by it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That I think does sell, but it's so rare.
Jocelyn, she better write Dr. Lori and tell Dr. Lori to stop watching my channel. I'm saying that clear glass. Dr. Lori, stay in your lane, sister friend. The Cult of Vintage. The Cult of Vintage. In 2 videos now, in 2 out of his 6, 1/3 of his content has been preaching the qualities of clear glass. Dr. Lori, get back in your lane. We in the flash lane over here, sister. Don't try it out. Don't try
it out. I'm drafting behind Michael because I also say clear glass. I love clear
Amen. You can do so much with clear glass. It's so underrated. It is so underappreciated. It is year-round. It is classic. It is the first kind of glass.
There is a big difference between clear glass and clear glass. You know what I mean?
But you can do a lot with clear glass.
But I mean, if you're
creative.
talking about like EAPG and that kind of stuff, but I mean, when you're talking about like Homeco clear glass, You know what I mean? I mean, there's clear glass and then there's clear glass. You know what I mean? There's a difference between the two.
I'm not sure which one
There's
was
quality.
which in that sentence, but I do get what you're saying. And I think it's one of those cases that it's like what Michael does, what you can do with it. I mean, to a certain extent, from us, from resellers, I don't think any of us are going to go out to the dollar store and buy clear glass wine glasses and try and say that these are something special. But
well, I mean, some people might, but
well, maybe. But like in my case, like I like the clear glass from the kitchen because I put it in my dishwasher. So I've got 1930s Hazel Atlas crisscross.
Yep.
I have some in the dishwasher right now. It's because it's clear, so I don't have to worry about its color. Yeah, am I damaging it? I don't know. I'll be dead soon, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I wouldn't want to do that with colored glass. So I just feel the clear, and it goes with everything else in my kitchen because it's clear.
Yeah. Well, and I think though, too, like Michael said in his video today, you can add color to it. You can add, fairy lights to the inside of the clear glass vase or clear glass bowl. Or, you can add it to you can add some color to it and it just blends in so perfectly. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with clear glass, but not all clear glass.
Well, and that's where the research comes in, knowing what it is and why it's special, that it's not whichever half of the clear glass sentence you made, that it's not that bad clear glass, that it's good clear glass.
Right.
Because if I've got two big Manhattan, from the 30s, big cake plates, that would be great for, the tiered tray challenge or whatever, because they're perfectly flat.
Yeah.
So you could build whatever you want on top of them. And all you've got is this beautiful concentric circle, clear glass sitting underneath it. So it's not going to detract from anything you put on top of it.
One of my favorite things to do is to do clear glass with a metal of some sort, you're getting that hard and that soft. And I like to combine the hard and the soft and elements. I just think that it adds a little bit more interest to them. So if you're looking like pewter and, just even pot metal and stuff, I think looks nice. Brooches. Now that's one thing that I'm going to throw that one out there. I do see brooches coming back. I have noticed that brooches have done pretty well for me. Figural ones, especially, and florals. Very deco 1920s, 1930s brooches, I think, are doing pretty well, especially if they're silver.
I think that's a sign of the times, though. And I'm not saying that they should go away, but I think bring back the brooch, absolutely. But in the Zoom world that we're in, if you're Zooming, how much can you really show? So if you've got a brooch on your sweater, on your shirt, people will be able to see it. So also necklaces or earrings, but something that's up, bracelets, not so much, rings, not so much, because you're not going to see it.
That's a really good point.
I've seen people wearing brooches on their masks.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. And somebody here on YouTube, I think, is where I saw it at first, but I thought that was a really great idea because it's a way to show that. I mean, we got to wear those stupid things when we go out. It's a nice way to accessorize it and jazz it up a little bit. I've always been wearing brooches, though, because I used to, one of the things that I did before the pandemic was I taught little kids drawing in an after-school program. And I always liked to change out the brooches that I wore because the kids kind of got a kick out of them, the littler ones, just seeing the different things. So I always like the figural ones too, because they come up and comment on them. But
I had a friend that when I was teaching too, I had a friend that would make necklaces out of vintage toys. Like I had one with a plastic horse, like from an old Western set. And I had one that had a plastic, and actually I still have it. It has a plastic dinosaur on it that she spray painted gold and then added. It's just really, but it's, I mean, you wear things sometimes for the young kids and they just think that you're so cool because you're like, Mrs. Pate's got a dinosaur. She's pretty cool.
She's old enough to know the dinosaurs.
Well, you know what? They would ask me they'd say, how old are you? And I'd tell them and they'd be like, you're older than my mom. I was like, I'm pretty old. Tammy says Italian pottery, which I think is something to talk about because the Mexican pottery has just kind of taken off a lot. So the Italian pottery is very reminiscent of the Mexican pottery, but it's brighter. Well, I don't want to say that it's bright. The newer Mexican pottery is pretty bright, but like the Italian pottery just has a lot of vivid colors. Yeah. And a lot of contrast between the whites and the brights. So that would be nice. That would be something that I would like to see come back. I think it's beautiful. And see, we need to not let Goodwill know all this stuff. I hope that you're not watching Goodwill because then you'll mark.
I think there might be one or two. I think there might be one or two thrift stores that do watch YouTube specifically.
Oh, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. Absolutely. Claire says obsolete or soon to be cigarette cases, magazines, heirloom seeds. Ooh, I had sold an heirloom seed box. This has been years ago for quite a bit of money. It had the original paper label on the inside. That was the box itself. Cigarette cases, I have done very well on.
You can use those for cards though, especially like women with like your purses, or if you just want to put it, well, I know a lot of women's clothing doesn't have pockets, but in the rare instance that you have a pocket, you can use that instead of like a purse. So I think
reconfigure them into little sewing kits.
Yeah. There's a little magazines.
Magazines, I think, will be around for a while for the advertising. So it kind of gets into the era of the magazine. Like I think, a 2010 People magazine, maybe not so much, but you're still going to go crazy over a 1930s Good Housekeeping or a 1960s Esquire. You're just going to love the ads.
If you think about it though, a 1930s Good Housekeeping or Life magazine or whatever with those colorful ads in it, you buy that one magazine, and as much as it pains me to say this, and you take out some of the ads, you've got a lot of money in that one magazine in resale if you sell the ads individually. Individually, maybe even buy some matting and put them in a mat and put them in. You don't even have to get an expensive frame, but just show your buyer how they can use it. You have quite a bit of money in those magazines because of the ads.
I love those old magazines. Oh, I just adore when I come across them. Not only for the
me too. Thinking about doing. Oh, go ahead. I froze there for a minute, and I was talking, and then you all were frozen. What were you saying, Cindy?
I love those old magazines, not only for the ads, but the stories and things, and just the different things, and the pictures of like the houses and the furniture that they're selling as new. Oh my gosh, I just get such a kick out of when I find them. That I'm like you. I love ephemera. I don't sell a whole lot of the ephemera, partly because I have a hard time letting it pass through my fingers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it.
I think that postcards, someone was saying postcards too. And I tell you, and I've done very well with maps, vintage maps sold in lots, because people do junk journal. I mean, you think about things that are, if you're finding like a book and it's in really bad shape, and books condition sometimes mean everything in books. I mean, Patrick knows that. Patrick deals in books. And so you see a book and the pages are all fallen out. It's missing the cover pages. It's been written in all over. The spine is ruined, but there's still value in those books because of the junk journaling. People will use the cover of the book. They'll take the pages out of the book.
I get so excited when I find books that are falling apart like that, because I do junk journals and I'm an artist, but I find that I appreciate the intrinsic value in a book that's 100 years old that has managed to survive. And there's no way you could get me to use that as that piece in a piece of artwork. Nothing against the people that do. There's some people that do some amazing artwork using that, but I can't do it. So when I find them falling apart and tatters, torn, everything, like, I get so excited, and I'll grab those up because I know that I won't have a problem using that.
Well, to a way, you're kind of saving it. You're giving it a new life because
Exactly, that's what I
in
think.
everyone else's hands, it'll get thrown away because they
Yeah.
don't see any value to it.
Yeah. I have a couple of those true, was it called True Story? Is that what they're called? The saucy magazines. Is it True Story? I don't know. But I'm thinking about, I think it would be neat to do like a video, like reading some, because these are the magazines that were like, children should not be reading these magazines. They are for adults only, but they're not like a Playboy. I mean, they're not like, they're just kind of for that day. They were very risque, you know. But some of the articles are just good. I mean, because they're written in the 50s and it was a different time, you know. Critter Girl, how do you remove pages from damaged books and magazines? Cindy, how do you've done it before? What do you think is the best?
Well, it depends on how damaged it is. Sometimes there's not a whole lot you can do than just pull it off from where it is. When I'm working with books, though, oftentimes I'll take an X-Acto knife or a utility knife and I will cut down by the spine so that I get as much of the page off as possible. And if I'm making a junk journal and there's enough of the book together and it's a sewn-in book, I'll go in and try to remove the whole signature so that I have both parts that I can then insert, you know, maybe not all together, but at least one of the pages in another book, so that it's, you know, if you know what I mean, it's already still in its V shape. So yeah, different ways of doing it. It just depends on how damaged the book is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say with the magazines though too, and again, you're taking the pages out of like these magazines. So the magazine itself is going to get torn up, but you lay it flat and try to break up the binding as much as you can. And then take that X-Acto knife and just kind of go down the center of the spine. And you're not going to get through all of the pages, but you know, you can get through if you find that one particular, like if it's a Coca-Cola ad, especially the ones that are, if you find the magazines that are from November and December, and then they've got those great holiday advertisements, like you've got Coca-Cola with a Santa on it or Coca-Cola with jack-o'-lanterns, those are the ones that you're looking for. So I always, when I'm looking at magazines, I'm always looking for November and December, just so I can hopefully, or I'm sorry, October and December, so you can look for those holiday ads. Okay, let's see. Katie says, Katie always has such good questions. Oh gosh, I love you, Katie. What do you think is the most effective kind of thumbnail for YouTube?
I'm waiting for the answer on this because I've been thinking for the last several weeks that I am awful at it. I'm awful at thumbnails and I'm awful at the title of things. So I'm going to sit back and listen to everybody's comments on this because I need to know.
Cindy, I am right there with you because I too am horrible at both. I'm horrible at titles because you're sitting there and you're like, because you want them to be a little clickbaity. You know, you do. You want to draw and I'm just sitting there. What would be fun? What would be catchy? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, so you waste so much time trying to come up with
I could spend forever trying to come up with that stuff, you know, second guessing myself. I've literally made 4 and 5 different thumbnails and uploaded them and sat back and looked and then uploaded a new one and looked at it. Yeah, it's not my forte, at least at this point. I'd love to go to a class.
I will say, and maybe this isn't a good thing for me to say. Maybe it's an insult to myself. I don't know. But I have found that the videos that I use that do not have my face in them do better. If you are doing a shopping with me video, take a picture of the shelf. Like, try to remember, I never remember this, but try to remember to take a picture when you're out shopping of a really cool display or your cart loaded up, or I don't know, just something that's interesting in the store itself. So you're not like me and you're like going through and seeing if you can get a screenshot somewhere because you've forgotten to take a thumbnail.
That's what I'm doing.
Right. And you're like, And then, you know, I've been up till like 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes editing videos. And then I'm like, oh, that's good enough. I'm going to bed, you know? So, I don't know. I think, yeah, see, I was just going to bring up Jeffrey. Jeffrey is very good at titles and at thumbnails. I don't know if it's maybe his graphic design background. It probably has a little bit to do with that, but I'm not good at it. But I do know that not putting my face in it tends to do a little bit better.
I think to a certain extent, though, the answer is going to change based on the size of the channel, because to a certain extent, it doesn't really matter what your thumbnail looks like. You're going to get hundreds, if not thousands of views within the first few hours, because you have so many people that'll just know, you know, because they're following you. They either get the notification or they'll just see it. For those of us who are my channel is still relatively small, that I can see a difference. And I've tried it, you know, I've tried to put my face on there. What does it do? Like the thumbnail I made that showed it was a shop with me video, and I was only in the booth for like 2 seconds. So I felt like it was clickbaity, but I did a screenshot, and it was a screenshot of the uranium glass and used that as my thumbnail. That has now been the most popular because it was very distinct. You know, so when people saw it, they knew exactly what it was. And so even if they only watched it for a couple of seconds, you know, they at least saw that part of it. And then I've tried to do that same style where, okay, well, let me grab something else. I've gotten to the point where I will send 3 or 4 pictures to some friends and just say, okay, which one's the most interesting? Like, what's one jumps out to you? And then they'll pick one, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll try and turn into that one. And it's a lot of it to me. I have to admit, I haven't done a lot with the titles, so maybe I should put more thought into that. Well, it's that visual image that when they're what to see next, and they're just kind of looking at little thumbnails, you know, it's got to be something that's going to pop out at them. So it should be brighter and interesting.
I mean, from what what little experience that I have, but I would like to think that I have some pretty successful friends, and I do listen to the things that they say, but a lot of times truthfully, it's not, because when you go into YouTube, you're not searching thumbnails, you're searching words. So the most important thing is going to be your title. And that goes directly to what Joanne is saying right down below, is that if you're like, I went to a thrift store, the only thing that is probably going to show up in your search is thrift.
Yeah.
And because of the size of your channel, it may shove you down. So you have to very clearly think. Now, the second part is, if you have an eye-catching thumbnail, then people are going to see that. But at the end of the day, you've got to try to capture a search and not an image, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
it also matters what time. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it also makes a difference what time you drop your video. So that's one of the things for people that don't have a YouTube channel. We get to see on our own analytics. You can see when, quote unquote, your viewers are typically, you know, on YouTube. And so I was talking to somebody who was posting some of her own content, you know, when's the best time? I'm like, well, check that out. And she was looking to post something in the morning and realize, oh, most of my people aren't even on until afternoon. So then, you know, okay, well then, because I've tried it. It's like, well, let me go ahead and post one earlier, even though my own analytics show that I don't have a lot of people on at that time. And those views will always be significantly lower. So it's like a combination effect. You know, is it the right thumbnail? Is it the right title? And now is it the right time that it's being posted?
I think that the thumbnail is good on not necessarily if someone is typing in Goodwill videos, you know, in a search. The thumbnail will help in recommended videos. Yep. Those are those ones that you're not necessarily subscribed to them, but it's like viewers that watch this channel also watch blah, blah, blah. And then the first thing that they're going to see is a fun title
and 40%
a fun thumbnail.
And 40% of my viewers are not subscribers. So that's an interesting statistic too, that most of us, I think, are in that same boat, that, you know, maybe 50 to 60% are subscribers, but I get a lot that aren't. So it is trying to figure out, like, well, how are they finding it?
Right.
And I agree. I think it's the visual. You never say never, but I don't think I've ever gone into Goodwill I've never gone into YouTube and typed Goodwill video. Like obviously people do, because I will echo what what Precious Lavender Button is saying. I will say I think recently when I started really watching it, I had 2 videos that specifically were Goodwill videos, and those did do slightly better than some of the others. But I'm not, I really want to be sensitive to clickbaity. So I'm not going to just say it's, put Goodwill in every title, but
oh no. Yeah.
So it does help.
Yeah.
But I put probably more emphasis in the thumbnail, and maybe I need to start exercising some diligence on my titles.
The three, and I've said this before, that the 3 T's I think are your title, your thumbnail, and your tags.
Yeah, you taught me about tags, so I have started doing that as well.
I'm not. I gotta find my words here. So the tags are interesting to me, because I noticed the other day when I was looking at the YouTube thing, because I used to type in like 100 million tags. Are you talking about in the actual area where you're putting all your YouTube information as opposed to in the description? Okay. Well, I looked in there the other day and noticed that it says there's like a caveat that they put off to the side that it only helps if people misspell words or something. So I'm not really sure what that's about. I thought, well, why am I typing in 100 different tags when that takes so much time if it's not helping? So whatever you guys know about that you can shed a light on.
It's like if you go to eBay and you type in Vada Schaefer and you didn't type it in, they'll still show you some things because those people typed it in wrong, but then they're going to say, did you mean? And rather than YouTube saying, did you mean, they're going to automatically say, no, this is what you meant, even though you spelled it wrong. Does that make sense?
But how does I guess my question is, like YouTube says these tags only help if people spell the things wrong. Are we supposed to type in the misspelled words, or I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if it's worth my time. I mean, you guys, obviously we were talking about it, but if it's worth my time to type in, 50 different tags in that section.
No, the majority of the time my tags are they're saved. So I use the same tags with every video. I don't.
You're talking, and Misty's talking about hashtags.
Yes.
So they become part of the body of the description.
Okay, we are talking about different things.
Yeah,
then.
And then there's the tags section.
Oh, the tags
at the very bottom.
Yeah, but all of those are saved too. I don't change those ever either. I did like a little experiment where, because Jeffrey and I had the conversation about, how in Instagram, if you're using the same tags over and over and over again, then you can kind of be flagged because it's like phishing or whatever it is. So I thought, well, I'm curious to see if that makes any difference, because I never change my tags or my hashtags. They're always auto-generated in what I have them saved. And I didn't notice a difference. So I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, using Goodwill, and see, that's something that I said I wanted to change, but it is hard, because if you put, like Jocelyn said, if she puts out an antique mall video, she has to title it with something like, I spent $935, or I bought everything, because people are not clicking on those antique malls videos, which they should, because they're much more interesting. But for some reason, Goodwill, people want to see those Goodwills. And I think that it's because they want to see you find a diamond in the rough. And I'm telling you right now, you're not finding no diamonds and no roughs at the Goodwills no more. You're just not. Yeah. Goodwill is finding their own diamonds in the roughs from their donation pile, and then they're putting it on their auction site. So antique malls and vendor malls are where we are now finding the items that are what used to be in the Goodwill. And I guess it depends on where you're at. But I know in my area, I'm not finding anything in Goodwill.
Yeah,
it's not the stuff people want to buy. That's the problem. I can go into Goodwill and I can buy stuff. That's, I'm not trying to, I can't find anything. Yeah, I can. But the problem is that nobody else is going to want to buy it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with thrift stores, and it's mostly hate. I don't like to go in there because I'm very protective of my time. I'm a very busy person. I have very little time, and the time that I do have, I'd rather be doing, something that's productive as opposed to something that's not. So if I go into a thrift store, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to spend all the time that it takes, and I go pretty fast, and they don't make for good shop along videos because I want to get in there and get out because I'm not going to find anything.
No.
Whereas if I spend the same amount of time going to an estate sale or a flea market or an antique store, I'm going to find something. Now, I won't find necessarily the major bargain at the antique store. I'm not going to find the $1 item. I haven't yet, but I'm definitely going to find something that I can resell and make a profit on. I mean, always, every time I go in, I find something at least. So, but it's more fun for me too, because there's more things that pique my interest than going into a thrift store that, maybe has one or two things. It is fun to find those few things hiding, if you can, but I don't know that I feel that it's worth my time to do it.
I just recently found something in an antique mall, and I paid $3 for it, and it's worth about $75 to $100 in an antique mall because that's where you're finding the better stuff. Goodwill has hired people to go through their donations that know what they're looking for, and they're putting all of that on eBay and on their website. Mm-hmm. So where you're going to be able to find things, especially our vendor malls, which are basically indoor flea markets. And a lot of the times it's these people that go to auctions and they're the ones that buy, I'm going to buy this whole row of things for $3. And they don't necessarily know what's in those, but they're selling them at flea markets and swap meets. And that's where you're going to find the things because they paid $4 for 15 boxes. And they're going to mark things low because they move in bulk. They buy a lot of things at once and they sell it. And that's when you can go in and you can find those things that they're not taking the time to go on eBay and look everything up because they're going to go to the flea market next or the auction next weekend and they're going to buy a whole other row of things. So I don't know. I mean, I just wish that there was some way that we could make y'all see that Goodwill videos aren't the greatest unless you're selling clothes, because people are buying clothes from Goodwill and I'm out of that clothing game. I've been out of it for about 4 years now. I have no desire to do anything with the clothing.
Well, I think the idea though too, because when you hear the word antique mall, I think it conjures up a certain price point.
Yes.
In people's mind. And I think that you definitely, I mean, shoot, I just went to 2 of them. It was okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think there's a bigger appeal. More people would be interested because more people can afford, if you will, whether they're actually shopping on a budget, they're reselling on a budget, they're watching their margins. So I get that there's going to be a bigger draw so far as YouTube content based on a thrift store versus an antique mall. But I do agree, Misty, though, and Cindy and Patrick, that you can go into antique malls and find just as, if not more, profitable items because they've been curated and your time is valuable and you are going to see things and it is more of an experience. So I don't know. It's a win-win for me.
And that's where I would say it's. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Misty.
What does it say? And you are supporting a local business. You're supporting someone in your community that has a small business. So I would much rather give my money to someone that. And listen, I know that everyone's familiar with how much work it does into setting up an antique mall and curating for the items and pricing the items and inventorying the items and staging the items. It's a lot of work. And so if you're going and you're supporting these vendors and these antique malls and vendor malls, then you're helping support a small business. And that means a lot to me. So, I mean, I think that, it
Oh, she froze. That's a good look, Misty.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully she'll join us in a second. But
Well,
she ended up echoing exactly what I was going to echo from you, Michael, is the idea of it being curated. And I think that's the difference that, like, I do go to the flea markets. You could have different experiences. I think people like Goodwill videos because in some cases they don't even know if there is an antiques mall or something like that near them, but most people can be near a thrift store or a Goodwill. My best, at least one of my best, if not my best flip, came from a vendor mall that had already been curated. Mm-hmm. They had an item that, they were still making money, but I paid only $3.99 and I turned around and sold it for $175. And it was because I ended up doing the research. It was a little Princeton hand-carved mascot of their tiger from the 30s. Wow. Like it, Google Lens is your friend. But the vendor hadn't done that. So they just thought it was a little carved tiger. They didn't think it was anything special. So you can find stuff like that. And I do kind of enjoy those experiences a little bit better than sometimes the flea market, because if they're just buying the entire table, they're now dumping that entire table out. And so now you've got to sit there and figure out. But what's good about that, and the videos can be interesting, if all four of us or the three that are left, if we were to all go to the same flea market, we'd probably all find something different. Yeah. We'd all go to the same booth. We'd all pick up something different because we all have our own knowledge or our own background, saying like, I recognize that piece of porcelain, or, Cindy recognizes that basket, and, Michael recognizes that toy. Those are the things you're going to be able to pick up. And it's that person still making money. We've all been shamed about making too much money, on certain things, but it's, that person will make money too. But I think the curation is key. And I was thinking small business.
While you guys were talking, I was thinking about recently, just very recently, I actually happened on a treasure at an antique mall, and it's something I'm going to keep. And that goes to that discussion we were having before. But I saw it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wanted one of these. And I wanted one even without knowing how much it was worth. I just wanted one. I saw somebody show it sometime or another. But if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen it. I got one of those McCormick pumpkin pie spice tins with the pumpkin on it.
Oh,
$3.50. And I didn't realize it until I put out the video, and I think it was Karina from Tarnished Treasures who made some comment about it and the value, and I'm like, huh? So I went out and I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then of course there's that part of me that thinks, well, I should sell that because that would help pay for the rent. But it's like, no, but I want it. I wanted it for me. Yeah.
Well, hello, I'm back, by the way.
Hello.
Thank you, Toledo Antique, for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Yeah, supporting small business is great. Absolutely. I'm trying to get caught up here. What did I miss while I was gone?
We were just
talking about
curation.
About
the antique mall.
Yeah.
Yes, curation.
I had seen somewhere that someone said that that antique malls a lot of times they don't change out their displays. And let me tell you, if you are in an antique mall and you're not changing your displays, you're doing yourself a big disservice. And I've said this, if you're not having an occasional sale, once a month, yes, have a sale once a month, 10% off. It's not going to affect your bottom line that much, but it will get customers to buy your items. We all know when we're walking through an antique mall and we see that an antique booth is having a sale, oh, we're there. I mean, we're there. So I would
see the sale sign before you see the stuff.
You do. Yeah. Well, and I would have a 20, I've even had 30% off videos sales when I had my brick and mortar, because I wanted to sell the stuff because I wanted to go buy more stuff and I needed the shelf space to put it on. So, but yeah, antique booths are a lot of work. I had a brick and mortar and I had 2,500 square feet by myself that I had to decorate and curate and all that kind of stuff. And it is a lot of work. Even if you have just like a 10 by 10 area, it is a lot of work pricing it. And I mean, you're researching it to see what you should price it for. You're curating, you want your booth to look nice, and you're buying all the supplies for it. So don't think that you cannot, if you're a reseller, don't think that you cannot go into an antique mall and find things that you can sell for a profit, because that's pretty much where I find everything, are antique malls and vendor malls. So go to watch the antique mall videos just as much and like them just as much as you do the Goodwill videos, because Goodwill is bad will. It's bad will.
I was pretty happy with Goodwill today. I don't know. It was.
Well, you live in Pennsylvania.
It was one I know, but that Goodwill is not. That Goodwill is not.
Not good.
A bad will.
I was like, well, we're gonna try this whole Goodwill video theory today. Be lucky if I find anything, but I'm committed, and I found something.
I'm spoiled for choice in the Chicago suburbs. We've got a lot of Goodwill, a lot of thrift stores. I will say I don't do a lot of the Shop With Me videos. I struggle with Shop With Me's in general, but I don't do a lot of them at Goodwill's. Kind of like what Cindy was saying, is in some cases I'm just going in and there's a couple of areas that I know I'm going to look for something really quick. And I'm not going to scour the whole thing. Like there's a thrift store that I go to, I have done a video at, I go to fairly regularly, and I can spend hours in there without exaggeration. I can spend an hour in an aisle, just, digging and having fun. In a Goodwill, I don't have that kind of an experience. So I don't tend to do the videos, but I do still find Goodwills are having good stuff. In some cases, their prices are slowly going up, but the ones in this area still do the 50% off colored tags. So it's one of those like, oh, it's too much to buy right now because they marked it up too high, but it's still around in a few weeks. Well, I get it 50% off. So I find Goodwill can still work, but.
Well, I'm glad that you can, Patrick, because I go in there and I get so disgusted and so angry. And I just saw Tina. Thank you, Tina. I can't bring it back up. Tina sent a $5 super chat. Thank you, Tina. And I can't bring the thing back up, but she said that she bought now Tina, look, if you know Tina, this will make sense. I bought metal grave markers for $50 and sold them for $700, and they're going to be movie props.
Wow.
That's fun, Tina. Wow.
Did you know what movie, Tina?
And Tina is a Vision and Vintage. That's exciting. I always have wanted to sell something for like a prop or something, a movie prop. Sugary Mess says it's that they've been to malls where the items don't turn. You see the same items from 4 years ago. You want to know why? Because they don't curate their booth and they don't have a sale. They basically are paying to store their things. Yep. I mean, that's basically what they're doing. They're paying rent to have a storage building, and they don't care that they're not selling it. They don't understand. It's not like they don't understand. They don't care that they're not selling it. They really don't.
There was a question in the chat. I can't remember whose it was, but I think the question was, is it worth having an antique booth or a vintage booth? And I think what you just said is kind of what makes the answer to that question. It depends on how much work you're willing to put into it.
Yes.
Jeffrey had said too, and I've had a couple of booths that have failed. And is it me? Is it the location or a combination? It's a ton of work. And not that I thought it was going to be easy, but because I do have a daytime job that normally requires me to travel, I haven't traveled lately, but I will be again. I wanted to do a physical location so that the work could kind of support itself. And I was finding I was going into there and futzing around with that way more than I was going into Etsy. And not seeing the returns. It was very difficult. And then paying a huge amount of rent on top of the commission that they took. So it's like, it depends on where you're located, it depends on how much it costs, depends on how big the space is, how much time you're willing to put into it, what you're going to sell compared to what else is there. All of those variables. In some cases, it could be a great experience. In other cases, it could be horrid.
Yeah. I very much recommend calling your area antique malls, and writing down, have a notebook. I live with my notebooks, writing down the prices, ask if they charge booth rent plus commission, because sometimes they'll do both. And then you're really not making a lot of money. Write it all down, compare, and then go visit each of those. See where.
And if they charge for credit card transactions.
Oh yeah, that one too.
One of the places I looked to move into, by the time you added all their fees together, if they also then used a credit card, the fees were almost 20% on top of $4.25 per square foot per month. So a 10 by 10 booth would be $425 a month plus 20% of your sales. And I just couldn't even imagine. I just couldn't imagine how that could be successful. But there were people there, there were people that have been there for years and they think it's the best place ever, but it can be expensive. Yeah.
So you have to do your homework and ask the questions and, and look, is it going to be like where my antique mall was? Yes, I wasn't an antique mall, it was an antique shop. I was right on the square in our little town, but was not, and actually in between two highways, but I was on a one-way road. I didn't get a lot of traffic, no foot traffic so you really have to go out there and say, okay, does this place advertise? Do they advertise on social media? Do they, so make sure that you kind of do your homework because you're going to spend some money in an antique booth. But if you're having fun doing it and it's a way, you're looking at it as just a fun hobby that you and your husband can do together, or, then take all that stuff into consideration. Katie always has a good question. Katie, promise me you will come every Monday night, Katie. Do you think it's important to have a mix of items in your live sales because they are popular, or stick to your niche?
I will say in my case, I do try and have a variety, but what I specifically focus on for my sales, because I don't tend to do as big of sales as some of the other channels, I try and have a variety of prices. So I will still have things in the $5 range, some things in the $10 range, and then maybe going up to $20 to $30 range. I tend not to have really high priced items, but I do like to have some lower price because I feel the live sales are for, people having fun. And I think you didn't wake up this morning knowing you needed this Cracker Jack toy. But if I only sell it for $5, you're taking that Cracker Jack toy home and you're going to pistol whip anyone who's trying to take it away from you. But if I say, well, I think it's worth 20, the number of people that are going to be willing to pay that is going to be significantly lower. And because my channel is already relatively small, I don't have the luxury of trying to get $20 for something like that, even if it's worth that. So I will very often be very low in my pricing, and I just have a range of price as opposed specifically to a range of what it is. Right.
Cindy, what about you?
I do a variety of things, but I've learned I've only been doing I've been doing the live sale since May of last year, and I was doing Etsy for a little bit before that, and so it's taken me a while to realize that I'm not going to sell something that is not something that I wouldn't be willing to keep for myself. And that was something that I came to along the way. So I have a variety of different things, but I always, when I shop for an eye for me.
Yeah.
Because I tried to shop with an eye for other people and I would fall flat. I would get something because it was the hot thing or whatever, and I didn't like it. And I don't know whether that came across or I didn't have the right people or whatever, but then I would have this thing that I didn't even like, so I wasn't going to keep it, and I couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted it. So yeah, I've just kind of learned to shop for me, but I do try to get a variety of different things. But you know what? I like a variety of different things, so it's not that hard. But I look at things that I like, and then I guess those people that like the same things are the ones that'll gravitate towards my channel because then they get a handle on what it is that I like. Kind of like with you. You and I, Misty, are very much, very similar in the kind of stuff that we like. Well, and then I think people gravitate then.
I'm thinking the way that you're thinking right now too. I mean, I try to buy things that I get excited about, that I think are nice. And I think that there is something to, when people come to my sale, they already know what kinds of things I'm going to be selling. They go to Cindy's sale, they know that, I like weird and odd. Not like Tina weird and odd, but I love Tina weird and odd too. Trust me, I like all that stuff too. But the things that I sell are just kitschy and just different,
Unique.
and unique. Yeah. But so not everybody is going to necessarily want to buy the things that I'm offering, but I still want them to come and have fun and laugh and have a good time. That's the most important thing to me. Of course, I mean, I do this for a living, so this is how I earn a living is having these live sales. So, that I have to sell the things because that's how I pay my bills and all that other kind of stuff. But and that's how I keep buying more stuff to be able to go out and buy and sell. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have a variety of things as far as like when I buy things, but typically the things like the puzzles and the games that are new in the package, those are the kinds of things that I will put on eBay, which trust me, has not happened in a while. So, but I do have a shelf that I put them on that soon to be, hopefully will be listed on eBay. But yeah, I just like to buy the things that I would have in my home. Mm-hmm. So definitely the same way. And I think Michael is the same way. I think he gravitates and tries to sell the things that he himself likes.
I have to be careful because I know sometimes some of the stuff I like, I'm like, oh, this isn't really, I don't think a lot of, and I know I was gonna be like, yes, we are. But like the Austrian, the applied floral potteries and ceramics, the Art Nouveau, like I really like those. And I think that people find them pretty and there's an appreciation for them, but it's just not the aesthetic that they're necessarily going for in their home. So sometimes I do have to be like, no, Michael, are you buying it because you like it? Or are you buying it because you think that the people will like it? Yeah. So I actually do. I'm kind of an opposite kind of buyer at times where I'm kind of like, oh, don't buy that because you really like it. Buy it because you think somebody out there is going to want this.
Yeah.
So.
I will say because I would probably fall more closer under Michael's description.
Yeah.
That I won't buy something I don't respect. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to buy something that I think is ludicrous, and I don't know why anybody would insane enough to buy it, because it's the same. I wouldn't be able to give it any gravitas when I tried to sell it, because I'd be like basically laughing the entire time.
Right.
But the flip side, when Cindy was sharing her part, it makes me feel like lesser of a person. But I would never sell something only that I would want to keep. I mean, there's been stuff, particularly with my early sales, there's stuff that when the sale ended, it didn't sell. I'm like, okay, it's going to Goodwill. Like, I'm just like, get it out of my house. I'm not keeping it. But you learn from it. And then you figure out, like, I will agree with Cindy. I don't go out and be like, oh, here's the hot thing in somebody else's sale. I need to go buy that so I can be like Misty or I can be like Jeffrey. Like that, I'm not going to do if it's something that I don't know or understand or whatever.
But everybody knows
I just sold. Yeah, if I just sold what I liked, you'd have an entire sale of stoneware.
Yeah,
I think Michael and I need to compare our Austrian pottery. My glass flower frogs, like those types of things. People will like their appearance, but they're not going to buy it, and they're also going to be way too expensive for a live sale. So
I always think, and you don't want to ship those either. Those aren't the best. I always think though too of how people can use this in their home decor. I mean, that's kind of where my mind is always at when I'm buying things and when I'm explaining things during a live sale. I like to explain how it can be used. But I like
you do a great job with that too. Like I really need to learn from you on that.
Well, I mean, I like to find things that aren't. That's why I think I like advertisement pieces, things that weren't necessarily meant to be used as a decor piece, but you're because I like people to come to my house and be like, that is so interesting that you did that way, and that's kind of where my mind goes as far as buying things that I want to resell. And honestly, I don't have you could probably come into my house and say, oh, how much you want for that? And I will sell it to you. I mean, I'm not like, there isn't very many things that I am like, unless it's like a family thing, but I mean, I will sell pretty much anything. if you like it, I will give you a price on it. But
I'm getting better at
Shop
that.
Rochelle. She's gonna do Shop Her Home.
I say we all need to go to Misty's house.
I mean, I might one day walk around and say, and that's how I got started selling on eBay. Night, Jocelyn. I just will I don't want this anymore. And I'll take it off my wall and take a picture of it. And, and honestly, when I first started selling on eBay, it was long after Mark and I got married, and we needed the money. It was just like, we needed to sell the things that are hanging on our wall. We're going to be wrapping it up very soon. I like to try to be done at 10 o'clock because I like to go to bed. This is always so insightful and fun to see what everybody is saying. And it's so helpful and interesting. I love seeing everybody's conversations with one another, during the shows. And I did see there's this one last question is from, this is going to be a hard one to say. Joy's Joyous Treasures and Junction. I did it.
Choo choo.
Choo choo. And I know I mean that with all respect because people can never say my name either. So
amen.
Yeah. Best way to start your first live sale. She's nervous. Well, it's a tricky thing. If you're having a live sale, you need to have people that are going to be watching it. So if you have 3 subscribers, even if those 3 subscribers have rung the little bell, those are the only 3 people that are going to get a notification. So I always recommend that you build up an audience first by creating content. Don't just create a channel and say, I'm going to have a sale. And the only thing that I'm going to have on my channel is live sale content. I think it's very, very important for your customers to get to know you a little bit. I think it was brilliant what Michael did. And I've told him this, and if I could go back in time, because my first video, horrible, but he was very smart in getting, building that relationship with the viewers as far as, hello, well, this is my collection, and his viewers are kind of getting a little insight on who he is as a person. And then he's branching off into, go shopping with me and haul videos. He's been selling with us for a while. So yes, he's gotten, an audience, from having the sales with us. But I think it's very, very important to build an audience first. And it's going to take time. It always does. Reselling in general without having eyes on your items is very, very tough. So don't get discouraged. And I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I think another key, and we'll talk about Michael like he's not in the room. Another good thing that Michael did. Well, another thing that Michael did was he established his presence on Instagram. And so, people started knowing who he was. He participated in the chat as a true participant, not as a mercenary, not as, a walking advertisement for himself. He just became a genuine person, and we all got to know who Michael Todd was. I remember the first time Michael bought from me, I thought I was like walking with royalty type thing and he didn't even have a YouTube channel at that point, but he had become known, like Nate has become known, like, Nate, you build that presence. What I think is worth now, granted, the landscape is very different now. So the experiences that we all had is going to be a little bit different. But I guess I've been doing this about the same time as Cindy, because my first live sale was May 12th last year. And at that time, I only had 88 YouTube subscribers. Mm-hmm. So the key though was to really promote everything I could on Instagram. Like I already had, several hundred on Instagrams, like just really kind of promoting and trying to do that cross promotion. There's a lot of people that are trying to do YouTube that don't want to do Instagram. That's fine. You be you, but you're losing a place to really build a voice. And then I think for your advertising. And then I also do think it's key to be a personality even in the chats where you're not trying to sell something, mm-hmm. where you're just, you're not trying to draw attention. You're just, people get to know you. So then when they hear, oh, you've got a channel or you've got a sale or whatever, And then, people, this community is so supportive. Misty was so helpful trying to, get my first channel or my first sale like organized and what to do and what not to do. We're all here to help each other. But the fastest way to annoy me, which actually isn't all that hard, but the fastest way to annoy me is to start tagging me and, asking me to promote when I don't even know who you are. And I've had that happen multiple times, and I'm, a tenth of the size of Misty and Jeffrey and Jocelyn. So it's like you start going after these big channels. You just have to be respectful. It's not our job or anybody else's job to help promote you. You need to promote yourself, but don't do it on someone else's channel. And don't, just build a presence, but you don't have to build necessarily a YouTube presence. So I just like a little asterisk after what Misty said.
I
you don't have to have 1,000 followers to do a sale. So but you do need to people need to know who you are and please do more than just sales. Yes. That's so many people. I mean, again, you be you, whatever. I'm not here to judge, although I will. But if you do sales, it's like, then I don't even know who you are. You're just trying to make money. And that's not, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember that this is it's social media. It's not the Home Shopping Network. It isn't QVC. If you want to try to be the Home Shopping Network or QVC on social media, you might have some relative success, but you're not going to have the big and lasting success that you're probably really wanting. So I would just, again, everything that Patrick said, everything Misty said, be yourself, be a personality, be a human being, put your best personable foot forward first, and see how far that can take you. I mean, hello, look where I'm sitting. Just be genuine, be a good person. Like, you never know what doors those could open for you. And people will open them for you just because they're people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it isn't, I started doing live sales in January of 2019, I think it was. Yeah, it was. I think so. Anyway, but I would sell maybe 15 things out of 40 things I was trying to sell. So, it does take a while, but yeah, being active in the community is definitely a way, but to a point. It is something when you're being asked all of the time to promote this. And I will promote it organically. I don't have a problem doing that at all. I love to do it. I want to help people get seen and get noticed, but it does get a little ridiculous after a little while. I'm not going to lie, but you have to self-promote, and you have to promote on every social media platform you can. You have to do Instagram. I hate Facebook, and I don't ever post. I just have it connected to my Instagram, so it just automatically gets posted. And I'm sorry if you send me a message on Facebook, I probably am not going to answer it because I don't even check it. The best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram. The very best way is through an email. So anyway, I did want to address this. Kitty Vintage. I've seen, she's commented a couple times. How do we get people to subscribe? I made the most horrible video. I would rather just be live shopping with you all. Now, okay, Kitty Vintage. Okay, everyone go to Kitty Vintage's channel and we're going to watch her video. I'm sure it's not as horrible as she's saying that it is. So, it's hard. It isn't easy. I think a lot of people they think, okay, I'm going to put out a video and it's so many people are going to see it. And it just isn't the case. It is hard. And you, Kitty Vintage, are your own worst critic. So don't give up. Keep going at it. Just be yourself. Be entertaining.
Do the best you can do. Like the worst thing you can do is compare yourself to what anybody else is doing. Yeah. And we've all been there,
Oh, absolutely.
So, you need to figure out what format you like to watch. And then maybe that's the format you try and emulate. We all do slightly different. I still struggle to do shop with me videos, so I don't really do a lot of them. But there's so many different styles that I've tried a couple different. And the one that I do now, I like it, but I'm completely ripping off George from the Antique Run Nomad. You know, I like that style because I like doing the mini deep dives. Like I don't like to just scan a shelf. I like to be able to show and explain and talk about something. Not everyone likes that, but you know, you have to do it for yourself first. And then you're like Misty said, you're always going to be your worst own critic. But don't say, "Oh, Misty put up a video and in an hour she had 1,000 views." And you know, not that I ever do that and think that, but you know, because I don't think I've like 1 or 2 videos that have had 1,000 views. Like it's just not something that's going to happen. It can be debilitating, you know, but just keep at it. You know, you'll find yourself, you put hours into the video and editing and put it out there, and 10 people see it, and it's kind of like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Do it for yourself. And if you genuinely want to have, you know, do it and why you're doing it, people will follow you, and you'll be motivated to keep it up.
That's what I was going to interject, is that if you're starting a channel because you're wanting to make all this YouTube money or whatever, or fame or whatever, you're going to have a rude awakening, I think, because very few people actually like make success really quickly. I mean, it took me a year and a few months before I ever hit 1,000 people. And I was doing everything that I could. You know, I was going out, I was, you know, meeting up with people and collaborating. I mean, I was doing everything that I could. But the difference is that I enjoyed what I was doing. So making the videos wasn't a job for me. It wasn't something that I struggled to do. I really enjoyed doing it, so it wasn't work. If it's work for you, if it's something that you're doing because, it's going to be really rough. So you have to find that thing that you like to do that gives you joy, that you could do if nobody ever paid you. If you never got a dime for it, or nobody even gave you the slightest, if nobody even came to your channel, you would just do it.
And after a year, you'll probably only be making a dime. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I was posting daily content for over a year before I was monetized. So I mean, I'm you know, I've got almost 21,000 subscribers, and I'm making enough like that equals a very low paying part-time job. So I mean, it isn't. You have to really enjoy doing it. I like to talk. I mean, I know, big surprise. I like to talk. I like to share things. I just like to engage and interact with people. So I enjoy doing it. But the amount of work that you do put into it does not justify the amount that you get paid. I mean, theoretically, for most people, you know, it is a lot of work. And with Jocelyn, for example, she works her hind end off. She does not take a day off ever. So, you know, she is at a level that everyone aspires to be. But I'm telling you what, and Michael knows this too, that girl works her tail off. She's never not working. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you really have to not want to have any free time, basically, you know. So yeah, Danny says, what's a day off? I know Sundays are my day off. That's the Lord's day. I take off. No, I mean, I do. It's just the only day it's the day that I make myself take off. Let's just say that. And I don't get dressed. But I clean my house. So it's not like I'm not working. I'm not just laying around eating bonbons. It's the day that I get off on my housework. All right.
That's Tuesday.
That's Tuesday for you. Yeah. I wanted to say too, that over the years, I think I took his name down. Over the years was here. And he and I have been talking a little bit. Tim, he has his live sale every Monday night at 8:00 when I do this. We were kind of talking a little bit that we may have something come on where maybe Tim will come on and maybe we could sell a few things of the evening. That might be kind of fun. So maybe we can do that. We can work that out with Tim. So maybe we can, you know, do a little something like that. So I think that would be fun. Tim has a wonderful channel. So make sure that you do check it out. His channel is a lot of fun. Make sure that you do go subscribe to Tim at Over the Years on his YouTube channel. All right. I think we are 12 minutes past Misty's bedtime. So I want to say thank you guys so much. This is always the highlight of my week. And it's just so much fun, and it's so interesting to get to get feedback. And that is one of the things. If you are a content creator, it's good to get this positive feedback to kind of know what people are wanting to see and stuff. So it's lovely, and I really appreciate all of you guys commenting and asking the questions and that sort of thing. I want to make sure that I thank Patrick, Trusty Huckster Mercantile, and Cindy from Mimi's Treasure Cottage for spending your Monday evening with us. Both of their channels are linked down in the description down below. So make sure that you do go and subscribe to their channels, watch their videos, leave the thumbs ups, attend their live sales, and make sure that you do that. They are wonderful and a very big asset to this community. So make sure that you go check them out. And he's right. I'm never going to figure that out. Michael, sitting right next to me, the Cult of Vintage. He is my co-pilot and a wonderful human being himself. So make sure that you do go subscribe to his channel as well. And all of you lovely people, if you have a YouTube channel, make sure that you go and you put your link to your channel in the comment section. And I will post it. I know that YouTube will block it sometimes when you put a link in, but I will approve the comment. So Kitty Vintage, put your YouTube, make sure that you go tag your YouTube, put your YouTube channel, and we'll go check it out. Just don't give up. And I guess that's it. Thank you guys. And tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is the 3-way sale. So make sure that you are coming to Michelle Comfy Cozy Living's channel, where Michael, myself, and I and Michelle will all be selling things tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So I hope to see you then. All right.
Thanks, Misty,
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Good night,
guys.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good night.